Aside from its human rights record, China's attempts to win over the world during the Beijing Winter Olympics will be remembered. This year's Olympic Games were also staged amid a background of unprecedented tensions between Russia and the United States. When it comes to the Ukraine crisis, the worldwide celebration of sport has frequently been eclipsed by constant conjecture over whether or not Russia would invade to the full extent. Well, as we know, more or less Russia has already indeed. Hello and welcome to YouNik Economy channel, where we attempt to do geopolitical analysis and its impact on the economy. As the games came to a close, violence in eastern Ukraine heated up. A genuine battle that has already started than it was a few weeks ago, when Russia's threat to use force against Ukraine was more hypothetical and frequently contested. Vladimir Putin is more confident than ever that the situation will be resolved in Russia's favor. The weakening Ukrainian economy, Russia's military superiority, and a new trump card, China, are likely to give him confidence. The ideal media storm that the United States and Europe have generated is something for which Russia should be grateful. Ukraine's economy has suffered as a result of the 4 months of uncertainty and the decision by Western embassies to relocate from the capital, Kiev, to the western city of Lviv. There has also been criticism from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who claims that fueling fears of an impending conflict is damaging the country's economy. Russia is also increasing its economic pressure on Ukraine by decreasing Ukraine's usefulness as a transit state for its gas shipments. As a result of the drop in Russian gas flows through Ukraine to record lows in January, analysts estimate that Ukraine will get less money from transit fees going forwards. The possibility of violence has also caused the dollar's value of the Ukrainian hryvnia to drop to its lowest level in 4 years, and has contributed to increased insurance costs for Ukrainian exports from Black Sea ports and Ukrainian airlines. The crisis has already cost the Ukrainian economy billions of dollars in the last few weeks, according to one expert. Despite Putin's agreement to further negotiations, it is evident that Russia will not back down. With its restored military strength and threat of conflict, Russia is willing to continue using it in its negotiation game with the West, even though it knows the consequences of a real war and how disastrous it would be for Russia's own economy. Grom or Thunder, Russia's yearly drill of strategic nuclear weapons, was recently held. An intentional choice to move them ahead from the second half of 2022 appears to be the case. We want to warn Western policymakers of Russia's nuclear superpower position, and the dangers of militarily confronting it. Meanwhile, Russia and Belarus confirmed that their combined exercise efforts will continue far into the future. About 30,000 Russian soldiers are presently stationed in Belarus, according to NATO estimates. Kremlin officials believe Russia's military is now one of the strongest in the world after 10 years of reforms and large infusions of money. The Russians are also certain that the United States or NATO will not risk a full-scale battle over Ukraine. In other words, Putin is counting on Western leaders to put pressure on Kiev to accept a political solution to the situation in eastern Ukraine that meets Russia's demands. China may be Putin's most effective enticement tool. Western nations were alarmed when Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Chinese President Xi Jinping before the outset of the Olympic Games. It's been suggested that this may amount to a realignment of the international order by leaders in the US and Europe. To begin with, the two leaders agreed to a long-term deal worth $117 billion to export Russian oil and gas to China. This deal gives Moscow the ability to offset the likely consequences of US threats to shut the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, if an invasion happens. It was also a declaration of China's political support for Russia's anti-Western policies. Chinese officials have spoken out for the first time in favor of Russia's resistance to NATO expansion. According to the two opposing camps, the North Atlantic Alliance should reject its Cold War ideologies and show respect for the sovereignty, security, and interests of other nations by refraining from expanding NATO further. China's Foreign Minister, Wang Yi, reiterated this message and supported the Russia-favored Minsk agreement on the political solution of the separatist pro-Russian areas of eastern Ukraine at the Munich Security Conference over the weekend. Despite the fact that Russia does not need Chinese military aid in any hypothetical invasion of Ukraine, Beijing's political and economic support is encouraging to Putin. In exchange, Moscow will reap substantial benefits for Beijing. To begin with, Beijing earned Moscow's reiterated backing on Taiwan by committing to help Russia's fight against NATO. To force Taiwan's unification or an invasion, China may use Russia's policy towards Ukraine as a model. To balance out the new AUKUS agreement between the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, China may now turn to Russia. It is possible that Chinese President Xi Jinping may utilize his good connections with Putin as leverage in his domestic politics. The Chinese Communist Party will host its 20th Party Congress later this year, which will be a turning point for Xi Jinping's reign. Vladimir Putin is admired in China as a strong leader, therefore Xi's efforts to achieve a second term in office may be dependent on strengthening his support from the Russian populace. For the time being, Putin has the advantage of time, which the West lacks. Beijing and Moscow are expected to develop closer as tensions between the three countries rise. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and, if you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button to keep up with new videos and updates.